How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the covered end for your latest Charlton updates, as Charlton failed to capture the players they were after in the transfer window. Now deadline day has passed and everything is done. We have not successfully captured the players that we wanted to. We've also not shipped out some of the players that Charlton expected to as well. So the club with a little bit of egg on their face at the moment, given that the owner actually came out and did an interview saying we need a striker, or we want a striker, we're chasing one, and a centre-back. I didn't even see any centre-back names linked over the last couple of days, so we haven't got one of those, and we also haven't got the striker that we wanted. Now, that striker was Macaulay Bonne, an ex-Charlton player who we sort of signed as a bit of a project whilst Lee Bowyer was manager for, I think, maybe 100, 200k, and ended up selling to QPR for, I think, a fee in the region of £2 million. So they were then going to loan Bonne back to us after all of that, and after we knocked them out of the cup as well, and after he's kind of failed as a signing for them. He's only scored like 2 or 3 goals for them pretty much, so that is a bit dodgy that we were kind of going for a player like that. But apparently he fits into Bengana's system, and I think probably a lot of fans would have probably rather had him than not had him. I'm definitely in the camp where I'm much more concerned about a defender than a striker. Now, I've always maintained that I think a striker, an extra striker, would have been nice. It would have been a really good acquisition for depth. But we mustn't forget the context that we do have Chukwuemeka. He is injured. We don't know how long he's injured for, but he is one of the best strikers at League One level. It just depends on how long he's injured for. And we've also got Miles Lieburn. Now, if I'm Miles Lieburn right now, I am rubbing my hands together and I am just chomping at the bit for the next opportunity to get on that pitch and prove that I'm not just a flash in the pan. I am a player who's going to come in, hit the ground running, and continue to do that throughout the season and just, make sure I make a name for myself. So Miles Lieburn, a lot more pressure on him now that we haven't signed a striker. But I think with Bengana being very clear about the fact that he wants goals from all over the pitch, he wants goals from midfield. We've seen that. Fraser's in decent scoring form at the moment. We'll talk about Gilby, who has exited on loan in a little bit, but Forster-Caskey, as of sort of just past midnight, we haven't seen any announcement that he's left. Now, these things can go through to, the early hours and even the following morning after deadline day. But at the moment, it looks like Forster-Caskey has stayed. So we've got to hope that Bengana just saw the quality that Forster-Caskey had there and said, no, I don't want him to go to League Two. It was League Two clubs that were interested in him, as reported by the South London Press, as reported by Richard Corley. I think it was Leyton Orient, Colchester, and maybe Crawley as well. And when I saw that story, it just blows my mind. Like this guy, I know he's had 2 major injuries, but they have been unlucky long-term injuries. And I was there when he was injured on pretty much the last game of the season a couple of years ago, and it was a bad challenge. Like it was a really tough bit of contact that injured him there. And he was very unlucky to get those 2 injuries. He's not one of these injury-prone players in the sense that they come in for a game, or 3 games, let's say, and then they pick up a little, knock for 3 weeks. That's more of an Anike type. He picks up these 6-8 week injuries. Forster-Caskey's just mostly, for the most part, he's had 2 really long injuries, which were really unfortunate to get. That's my opinion on it from sort of a more outside view. Maybe there are some fitness issues there, who knows? But I certainly think he can't be put quite in that bracket of injury prone in the same way that a Chukwuemeka can, for example. So very pleased at this point to see that he has stayed. So him, Forster-Caskey, McGilvery and Joyasimi, 3 players that potentially were leaving, and none of those players have ended up leaving at the moment. Remember, these announcements, as I said, can come later on. McGilvery would probably be the one that I would care the least about if he left, because we've got Wollacott. Wollacott looks fantastic, and I'm a big fan of Harness as well. Seen him in the Cups over the last 2 seasons, and he reminds me of how Dylan Phillips was when he was coming through. Nick Pope, players like that. When they got their chances in the Cups, they took them, and Nathan Harness is doing exactly that for me right now. So I think we'll get away with Wollacott and Harness as our 2 keepers for the season. Of course, we do lose Wollacott to the World Cup for a little while, but Harness, I think he can do 4 to 6 games probably, and we also will be given special allowance to go and sign another keeper on loan, just as like an emergency type thing, like a special situation type type thing. So, we might sign someone else if McGilvery does go. So that's why I'd care about him going the least. And then you've also got Ashley Maynard-Brewer, who suffered an injury and is not playing for Gillingham at the moment. But I think in a few weeks he'll probably be back. Maybe more towards like January, actually, he'll be back. And he's always an option if we want to recall him as well. And we know that he's a decent keeper at this level as well. So, yeah. We have seen Alex Gilbey leave. I said I would talk about this. Alex Gilbey has left. He'd probably brand himself as a goal-scoring midfielder that likes to, get forward, got a little bit of pace and energy, urgency about him. And it just hasn't worked out for him at Charlton in terms of his consistency. He hasn't been consistent enough. He's had his chances and he hasn't just made a name for himself in that midfield like he probably ought to have. So I'm not that sad that he's left. He's gone on loan to Stevenage. Not quite sure how that works from a point of view. Obviously, his contract expires next summer, June 2023. So if he's out on loan to Stevenage for the whole year, surely he then just leaves anyway after his loan spell finishes. We're not going to get any fee, but what it probably was that Stevenage are paying at least some of his wages, and that probably enabled us to get Bon in, but that never materialised. Again, just want to reiterate as well, we were meant to be after a defender. As I said, I was of the opinion that we need a defender much more than we needed a striker. And so very disappointed to see that we haven't been linked with anyone. We haven't brought anyone in. However, Sangard, in his comments after the transfer window closed, after he revealed that we tried he didn't name Bond, but he said a striker and didn't get one. Allegedly, this player had their medical at Sparrows Lane this evening and it still didn't go through. But he said that we're going to be looking on the free agents market. So we'll probably still sign someone. Does that player then become of lower quality? Is it like a C or D target as opposed to an A or B target on Steve Gallen's shortlist and the recruitment team's in general shortlist? It probably is going to be a plan C or a plan D. But, we've had players like Josh Parker, Kermigan, those types of deals from the free agents market and deals that maybe weren't our A targets that have actually ended up working out in a way. Josh Parker, a cult hero. Jan Kermigan, a fantastic player who overachieves by comparison to what he was expected to achieve. So, yeah, I'm interested to see who we go for now. But we are 2-3 players short, and I think that means that we're probably going to end up around about where we are in the table right now come entering the January transfer window. We are a bit short. We don't have the same depth as Sheffield Wednesday. They've got a number of strikers. They've got Patterson, Gregory up front, various other players at this level who are very good. They've got such a deeper squad. There are more teams like that. Ipswich. I don't see us breaking into that top two, and I actually see us. It's going to be down to the brilliance of Ben Garner and obviously the coaching and how he's got our team playing. That's going to be what gets us into the top six if we do get in there. But I think if we do get in there, we're going to sneak in there. It's not going to be like we're second, third all season. I think we're going to be about where we are now, and we're going to be, in the playoffs, out the playoffs, in the playoffs. I think that's how it's going to go out because Ben Garner, I'm not going to say he's got one hand tied behind his back because I don't believe that to be true. But if you would, Ben Garner probably wants a couple more tools at his disposal. Now his midfield options, unbelievable, by the way. He's got a really good midfield, even after Alex Gilbey leaves. I only see that as a positive because now, for Sakaski stays, if we do get like injuries to McGrandles, Payne, etc., he can step in. Aaron Henry scored a goal again in the cup against Gillingham. He looks like a fantastic player coming through, so he's probably going to get more opportunities thanks to Gilbey leaving. Midfield, we're fine. Up front, we're not fine. We could have done with that extra body. I think there's a bit of hysteria because Stockley's looked so out of place, but I think he will score a few goals between now and January. I can see him getting 5, 6, 7 goals, and obviously we're going to have goals from Raksaki, from Kirk, from Fraser. Morgan hopefully will start finding the net a little bit more. Hopefully, our centre-backs can score a few from corners and stuff like that. But I don't worry as much up front as I do defensively. If we look back at our game against Wickham on Saturday, 1-1, played really well. But Morgan and Claydon were the players that were kind of caught out for us conceding the goal. And that's because we don't have the strength at left back. It's because we're relying on, this is a slightly separate criticism, but Albie Morgan, again, I've mentioned this on the cover then, fantastic on the ball, but not so much off the ball. He was weak, he lost this challenge and it enabled them to break and they scored from it. So I would have liked to have seen a couple more senior defenders at the club, namely a left back and a centre back. And I think that was way more important than up front for me. But again, that does depend on when Chukwuemeka is back as well, because he's an unbelievable talent at this level. So I think given the fact that we failed to sign a centre-back, we failed to sign a striker, we may still go and sign one of those, or maybe even both of those from the free transfer market. But as I mentioned, maybe that quality of player drops. A left-back, I still don't know why we're not signing a left-back. I know everyone's going to say to me, Charles Claydon is our backup left-back and he's good enough. We don't know that yet. He's played like 3 senior games for us in that position. He got caught out pretty much for the goal against Wycombe that we conceded. And so I'm not that convinced by Charles Claydon's being, he might be a decent left-back. We might be able to bring him through. But if we want to be in the top 2 or even the top 6 this season, we can't afford to have backup players being completely inexperienced in their position. So I don't know. I would like to have another left back option, but just purely because Sessegnon is injury prone and right footed. Obviously, you don't want like a Pap Soiree. That didn't really quite work out, but I would have liked to see someone in there, maybe even a loan. Like we've signed Jay Da Silva, Ian Martson on loan from Chelsea over the seasons. That kind of loan signing to support Sessegnon would have been good. But hopefully Claydon does get that defensive game nailed down a little bit more and ends up being a really solid left back for us. But I just think it's unknown territory. That's all I'm saying about that. So yeah, a little bit disappointed about the lack of defenders and even less so, but still disappointed about us not signing a striker. So I'll probably give our transfer window, I'll go for a 5, maybe a 6. I'll go for a 5.5, I suppose, out of 10. Just purely because we did sign some really good midfielders. We got some good early business done by comparison to last season. If we had sold Jake Forster-Caskey, and if we have, and I just don't know about it yet, I would probably have knocked this down to like a 3 or 4. But we kept him. We did sign good players that we've already seen they're talented, like Raksaki, like Jack Payne looks a player as well. And O'Connell, the jury's still out on him. I think with O'Connell, I've seen moments with O'Connell in games over the last sort of 5, 6, 7 games. Some moments I think, wow, that was a really great pass. Or, he's done something really good there. Other times I think, oh, are you good enough for Charlton? Like you're a bit far away from your man or just don't look quite up to Charlton quality. So that's another reason why, the jury's out. I don't want to be too opinionated on O'Connell yet, but I don't know. I think we needed more if we want to be a proper good Charlton team. Think about when we got promoted in 2011, 2012, and we had some really good options at the back. We had Taylor, we had Michael Morrison. We haven't got those kinds of defenders. Innes is decent, doesn't quite fit in the system. Also, at the moment, looking like classic Innes. He's about to get injured. If he just overstretches or plays one too many games, he's going to be out for another month or so. So disappointed about the centre back. Hopefully we do bring in a centre back from the loan market, and it's also from the free agents market. Sorry, it's also worth mentioning that Ness played against Gillingham for our 3-0 victory in the Papa John's Trophy. Ness actually looked like a really solid option. Obviously, Alaraway was another one. He's out on loan now at Wealdstone till January. So Ness looks like the next obvious young player coming through, especially now that Charlie Barker and O'Connell, have gone on loan to. It's not Wealdstone, is it? It's Hemel Hempstead. So a fairly local loan for those two youngsters, I think in the 6th tier. I think they're in the National League South, aren't they? So probably the 5th or 6th tier of English football, I believe. 5th, I think. No, 6th. Anyway, so yeah, that is it. That's my criticisms about our transfer policy. And also, just to zone in again, I just think it's a little bit embarrassing from a club point of view that we did have that interview before. Basically, if Thomas Angar wasn't 100% sure that we were going to sign the centre-back and the striker we needed, he shouldn't have said anything. He shouldn't have come out and done an interview because he probably initiated that himself. Just wait 3-4 more days and then reflect on it. It's just a smarter PR move in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think about that. So yeah, 5.5 out of 10 for the transfer market. Excited to see more of the good signings we made. Payne, McGrandles, Raksaki, a couple of others there as well. Glad we kept the likes of Claire. Glad we kept the likes of Kirk. And Forster-Caskey, as I've mentioned many times. Hopefully he starts getting at least on the bench now for our league games. And that's it, guys. I think also it's worth reflecting on the last 2 games as well. Obviously, we did speak about them briefly, but the game against Wycombe, we played really well, but let a sloppy goal away and ended up with a point. Not a bad point against a decent team at this level. And then a really convincing victory against League 2 Gillingham in the Cup. we played like a pretty much a youth back four there, back five really, if you include Harness, and we actually got a clean sheet. So that's promising. And again, that sort of reinstates why Ness might be a good option should we need to go past Innes, Lavelle, O'Connell, and we don't have that full centre back coverage. So Ness might be able to get some first team minutes, and that could be good for him. But is it enough to get us promoted this season? That remains to be seen. But we're playing well. We've got Bolton away on Saturday. Very excited for that one. Again, another team that will be hoping to sneak into the top six. And if we can say a similar thing to what I said for our game against Wickham, if we can sneak a draw or a win, if we can just get a point or three on the board there, I'll be fairly happy. And then we have to go and back that up with 6 points from our next 2 home games. We have to. 4 would not be enough for promotion form, in my opinion, if we don't win against Bolton. I think we need to win our next 2 games after Bolton. So I'm excited to see how this team progresses. We've already seen progress. We've already seen some really good coaching from Garner, and he's got this team playing a lot better than Jackson and Adkins could. Everybody looks a little bit more settled, a little bit more hungry, and the team looks more fluid, and it's performing well. We just need to turn that into results now, and that's it. So I think that's going to be it for today's episode. This is probably the longest episode I've ever done. So obviously there was a lot to unpack there with transfer deadline day and the games. So yeah, I'll be back for another episode after the Bolton game to reflect on that. Maybe we'll be talking about a new signing. Hopefully not another any exits, any terminations of contracts. I like our squad as it is now. We need to add 1 or 2 more players, and we'll be all right. So yeah, let me know all your thoughts about everything, guys. How you perceive our transfer window to have been. Rate it out of 10 perhaps in the comments, and I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and thank you to everybody who's liked the first 7, 8 episodes and tuned in for the first few episodes of The Covered End. It's a really exciting sort of video series that I'm doing. I like recording the videos, and yeah, if you do want to help share the series, do send it to Charlton fans, and subscribe and like, and that really helps. But anyway, I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thank you again for watching, and up the attics.